Now that we've discussed the two different types of immune responses, nonspecific and specific, we want to look at how the specific responses go ahead and play out. So we have our first one, which is of course the primary immune response, and that's when our B cells and our T cells are going ahead and being activated and creating antibodies for specific antigens. So the body begins to make antibodies for the next several weeks. So if we go ahead and get the flu, it does take a couple of weeks for us to get over it. Now, the nice thing with this, of course, is then we have what's called the secondary immune response. This is very rapid because of those memory B cells and T cells that already have antibodies for that specific antigen, so they're already ready to fight. When we're talking about immunity, there's two different kinds, okay? So we've got the naturally acquired immunity, where someone goes ahead and encounters a specific antigen or a virus that has a specific antigen on it, and that is where we're going ahead and naturally acquiring these antigens into our bodies so that our body creates antibodies to attack them. The second type, of course, is going to be artificially acquired immunity, which is this is where we go ahead and we get a shot or immunization. So when you're a little baby, you get the measles, mumps, and rubella shot, and that introduces your body to that specific disease so that when it comes into your body, instead of overrunning your body's like, oh, I remember this. I've already seen this very weak version of this virus, and so I can go ahead and attack it with that secondary immune response. So with the types of acquired immunity, you can see a couple different types. So we've got natural exposure here on the left side, and then we have medical procedures here on the right side. So exposure is going to be the naturally acquired form of immunity. And you've got two kinds there, active and passive. So active means that you actually go ahead and you have contact with a pathogen and you become infected. The passive is a really neat aspect of human life in that we go ahead and we can acquire antibodies from our mother through the placenta and also through her breast milk. So it actually is very useful to go ahead and have a child breastfeed because they're acquiring immunity to these different pathogens with these specific antigens that their mother has already encountered in their life. On the other side, with artificially acquired immunity, you have vaccinations, which many times those are just going to be dead viruses or bacteria or attenuated pathogens. So all that means is that they're going to be not fully functioning, like they're not as good as they would be full-fledged if you were to encounter them into daily life. Passive is injection of immune serum or gamma globulins. So if you remember, globulins, immunoglobulins, were just antibodies. So you can go ahead and you can get artificially acquired immunity by having someone else's immunoglobulins or artificially created immunoglobulins put into your blood serum to give you immunity. And many times this is going to be for people who can't produce their own antibodies. So plasma donations would be one way that people can artificially acquire immunity in a passive form. All right. So allergic reactions, this is the fun little side of our body with the immune system where we go ahead and we respond excessively to foreign invaders. So when the body does that, chemicals go ahead and are released, causing allergic symptoms such as hives, hay fever, asthma, eczema, and gastric upset. So allergic reactions, unfortunately, aren't necessarily an indication that our body can't handle that. It's just that our body reacts overly to peanuts or bee stings or those kind of things. And then we have these symptoms that come about. All right, the other side of our immunity is that we know that we don't like things that aren't self, right? So if you need a tissue transplant or if you need a kidney transplant, a heart transplant, any of those kind of things, tissue rejection can occur naturally because you're going ahead and taking somebody else's tissue and cells and putting it into your own body, and your body's like, hey, I've never seen these antigens before that are on these cell surfaces. I don't know these name tags. So it's really, really important, and that's a lot of times why someone will have to be on a donor list for a while to go ahead and match the donor with the recipient tissues so that the body doesn't go ahead and reject that tissue and start attacking it. There are also immunosuppressive drugs, which just means that it's going ahead and suppressing the immune system's natural response to go ahead and attack antigens that are not self. All right, autoimmunity is unfortunately a disease in its own form, because auto just means self. So that means that the body begins to create own self antibodies to attack the antigens that are on our cell surfaces. So normally we're creating antibodies that are for non-self antigens. We don't have antibodies that are going to go ahead and connect like a puzzle piece with the antigens on our different cell surfaces. But with autoimmunity, we do actually go ahead and create those antibodies. So autoimmune disorders can result from previous viral infections. They can happen because of a mutation in the T cell development. So remember, the T cells are starting off within the bone marrow, and then they're traveling into the thymus and developing further and maturing. So through that process, they can go ahead and have genetic mutations that can cause them to begin to build autoantibodies or self-antibodies. It can also happen because of a reaction to a non-self antigen that resembles a self-antigen. So we've got all these different types of antigens. We have bigger ones and then smaller ones, and sometimes our body can get confused between which is which if you've got an antigen that is very, very similar to a self-antigen. All right, so that's it for our different types of immune responses besides specific and non-specific. So I want you, for the exit ticket today, to think about what is the importance of the secondary immune response and why is it useful. The other thing is that for your guys' homework for Wednesday, you need to go on to It's Learning before Wednesday, before class, and do the flipped work. You'll find it there at the very bottom of our overview page, and it will say flipped work, and that is your entrance ticket to class next time.